I found the photograph at an estate auction in Salem, Massachusetts. It was a Thursday in October, one of those crisp autumn days when the leaves are at their peak and the air smells of wood smoke and approaching winter. The auction was being held to clear out a historic home that was being demolished to make way for new construction, and among the items were boxes of old photographs and documents from various Salem families. One photograph in particular caught my attention, a formal family portrait from 1860 showing 6 people posed in a studio with an ornate backdrop. The father, seated on the left, wore a dark suit and bow tie, holding a young boy of about 3 on his lap. The mother, seated on the right in a high-collared dark dress, held a baby in a patterned outfit. Between them stood 2 older children, a boy around 8 in a buttoned jacket and boots, and a girl about 6 in a plaid dress with a lace collar. All had serious expressions and formal posture, typical of the era. But it was the father who immediately drew my attention. His upright stance and stern gaze conveyed authority, marking him as the firm, commanding figure of the family. There was something in his eyes that was unsettling, a coldness, a distance, as if he were looking through the camera rather than at it. The auction coordinator noticed my interest. "That's the Blackwood family," she said quietly. "One of Salem's darkest stories. That photograph was taken in April 1860. By November of that same year, the wife and all 4 children were dead, murdered by the father and buried beneath the house. The reason why, well, it's one of the most disturbing things I've come across in 40 years of handling estate materials." On the back of the photograph, in faded ink, was written, "The Blackwood Family, Salem, Massachusetts, April 1860, May, God have mercy." And below that, in different, more recent handwriting, "Jonathan Blackwood murdered them all, buried beneath the parlor floor, the inheritance madness of 1860. Evil incarnate." I bought the photograph along with a box of related materials, newspaper clippings, court documents, and what appeared to be a psychiatric evaluation, for $500, my hands trembling slightly as I examined them. That evening in my hotel room, I spread everything out and began piecing together one of the most horrifying family murders in Massachusetts history. The newspaper clippings began with what seemed like a routine missing persons report. From the Salem Register, November 15th, 1860. Wife and children missing from Prospect Street. Home authorities are investigating the disappearance of Mrs. Catherine Blackwood and her 4 children from the family's home on Prospect Street. Mr. Jonathan Blackwood, a clerk at the Salem Bank, reported his family missing on November 14th, stating he had returned from a business trip to Boston to find his home empty and his wife and children gone. The missing individuals are Mrs. Catherine Blackwood, age 32, Master Henry Blackwood, age 8, Miss Elizabeth Blackwood, age 6, Master Thomas Blackwood, age 3, baby Margaret Blackwood, age 8 months. Mr. Blackwood expressed deep concern for his family's welfare and stated he has no knowledge of where they might have gone. He noted that nothing appeared to be taken from the house and that his wife left no note or explanation. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Salem Police Department. But the story changed dramatically within days, triggered by an observant neighbor. From the Salem Register, November 18th, 1860. Shocking discovery. Bodies found beneath Prospect Street, home. Husband arrested for murder of wife and 4 children. In a horrifying development, the bodies of Catherine Blackwood and her 4 children have been discovered buried beneath the parlor floor of their Prospect Street home. Her husband, Jonathan Blackwood, has been arrested and charged with 5 counts of murder. The discovery came after neighbors reported hearing sounds of digging coming from the Blackwood home in the weeks before the family was reported missing. When questioned about these sounds, Mr. Blackwood claimed he was making repairs to the foundation. Acting on suspicions raised by the neighbors' reports and by inconsistencies in Mr. Blackwood's account of his family's disappearance, police obtained a warrant to search the property. Excavation beneath the parlor floor revealed the bodies of all 5 family members, buried in a hastily dug pit. According to preliminary medical examination, all 5 died from blunt force trauma to the head. Evidence suggests they were killed in their sleep during the night of October 28, 29. Most disturbing, Mr. Blackwood had been living in the house alone for over 2 weeks after murdering his family, with their bodies buried beneath the floor. The community is in shock at these revelations. Mr. Blackwood had been regarded as a respectable, disciplined man of good character. I found the detailed police investigation report, which painted a picture of premeditated, methodical murder. From the police investigation report, November 1860. Investigation into the murders of Catherine, Henry, Elizabeth, Thomas, and Margaret Blackwood. On the night of October 28, 29, 1860, Jonathan Blackwood, age 35, murdered his wife and 4 children while they slept. He struck each victim multiple times with a heavy iron poker, killing them in their beds. The murders occurred in the following sequence, based on evidence and Mr. Blackwood's eventual confession. Mr. Blackwood waited until approximately midnight, when he was certain all family members were asleep. He first went to the room shared by his 2 eldest children, Henry, age 8, and Elizabeth, age 6. He struck each child multiple times on the head with an iron poker taken from the fireplace. Both children died without waking. He then went to the nursery where Thomas, age 3, and baby Margaret, 8 months, slept. He killed both children in the same manner. Finally, he went to the bedroom he shared with his wife, Catherine. She had apparently awakened at some noise and was sitting up in bed when he entered. He struck her repeatedly until she was dead. Evidence suggests she attempted to defend herself, but Mr. Blackwood overpowered her. The murders took approximately 1 hour from start to finish. Over the following 2 days, Mr. Blackwood dug a pit beneath the parlor floor, approximately 6 feet deep and 8 feet wide. He wrapped each body in canvas and placed them in the pit, then covered them with earth and relaid the floorboards. He then went about his normal routine for 2 weeks, going to work at the bank, attending church, socializing with neighbors, all while his murdered family lay beneath his parlor floor. On November 14th, Mr. Blackwood reported his family missing, claiming he had returned from a business trip to find them gone. He maintained this story until confronted with evidence of the excavation beneath his house, at which point he confessed to the murders. The motive. Mr. Blackwood's motive for these horrific crimes was revealed through documents found in his study and through his subsequent confession. The reason was as disturbing as the murders themselves. In September 1860, Mr. Blackwood learned that a distant uncle in England had died and left him a substantial inheritance, approximately $15,000, equivalent to roughly $75,000 in 1860 American currency, an enormous sum. However, there was a condition to the inheritance. According to the terms of the uncle's will, the money was to go to Jonathan Blackwood if unmarried and without children, at the time of the uncle's death. If Mr. Blackwood had a wife or children, the inheritance would instead be divided among other relatives. Mr. Blackwood's uncle had been a lifelong bachelor who apparently believed that family obligations were obstacles to financial independence and success. The will was written to reward only those family members who had similarly avoided family entanglements. When Mr. Blackwood learned of both the inheritance and its conditions, he was faced with a choice: accept his life with his family, but forfeit the money, or eliminate his family and claim the fortune. He chose murder. Documents found in Mr. Blackwood's study showed he had spent weeks calculating exactly how much money the inheritance represented, what he could do with such wealth, how it would change his life. He wrote extensively about his burden of family obligations and his dreams of financial freedom. In one chilling document, he wrote, "A man's true measure is not in his family, but in his fortune. Family ties bind a man to mediocrity. Wealth offers liberation." He apparently felt no genuine affection for his wife or children. They were merely obstacles to the life he desired. I found excerpts from Jonathan Blackwood's own writings, discovered in his study after his arrest. The cold calculation was terrifying. From Jonathan Blackwood's private journal, October 1860, September 15th, 1860. News arrived today of Uncle Theodore's death and the inheritance, £15,000, a fortune beyond my wildest imaginings, everything I have ever wanted within reach. But there is a condition. The inheritance is available only if I am unmarried and without children. Uncle Theodore, in his wisdom, believed family obligations prevent a man from achieving true greatness. He was correct. I have a wife and 4 children. They stand between me and the life I deserve. September 28th, 1860. I have spent 2 weeks considering my options. There are only 2 paths: remain with my family and live in modest circumstances for the rest of my days, or eliminate the obstacles and claim what is rightfully mine. The mathematics are simple. With the inheritance, I could live as a gentleman, I could travel, I could invest in business ventures, I could enjoy all the pleasures of life that are currently beyond my reach. Without it, I remain a clerk at the bank, returning each evening to a household of noise and obligation, watching my modest salary consumed by the needs of 5 people who give me nothing in return. The choice is obvious. October 1st, 1860. I have made my decision. Catherine and the children must be eliminated. It is regrettable but necessary. They are ultimately obstacles to my proper place in the world. I feel no anger toward them. This is simply a practical matter. A man must sometimes make difficult choices to secure his future. I will wait for the right moment. I will plan carefully, and I will execute what must be done with precision and efficiency. October 15th, 1860. The plan is set. I will wait until late October, when I can claim I was away on business. I will kill them all in their sleep, quick, efficient, minimal suffering. I will bury them beneath the parlor floor, where no one will think to look. I will report them missing after a suitable interval. No one will suspect me. I am a respectable man, a bank clerk of good character. No one will imagine I could do such a thing. October 28th, 1860. Tonight is the night. I have the iron poker. I have prepared the parlor floor for excavation. I have constructed the story I will tell. By tomorrow morning, I will be free of my burdens. By next month, I will be a wealthy man. God forgive me if such a being exists. But I believe God, if he is just, would understand that a man must do what is necessary to claim his rightful place in the world. No further entries. The psychiatric evaluation conducted after Blackwood's arrest attempted to understand his mindset. From the psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Samuel Pierce, December 1860, I have examined Jonathan Blackwood extensively following his arrest for the murders of his wife and 4 children. My findings are as follows. Mr. Blackwood presents as rational, articulate, and composed. He shows no signs of the insanity that typically accompanies such horrific crimes. He understands the nature and consequences of his actions. He is capable of distinguishing right from wrong. However, Mr. Blackwood appears to lack any capacity for genuine human affection or empathy. He views his wife and children not as beloved family members, but as obstacles and burdens. He describes murdering them in the same tone one might use to describe disposing of unwanted furniture. When I asked Mr. Blackwood if he felt remorse for killing his children, he stated, "I regret the necessity, but not the action. They stood between me and the life I deserved. Their elimination was the logical solution to my problem." When I reminded him that he killed 4 children, including a baby, he responded, "Children are burdens. The inheritance was meant to free me from such burdens." Mr. Blackwood has what I would characterize as a profound moral deficiency. He is capable of understanding ethical principles intellectually, but he feels no genuine moral obligation. He views morality as a social convention that applies to others, but need not constrain his own behavior when it conflicts with his desires. This is not insanity in the legal sense. Mr. Blackwood knew what he was doing. He knew it was wrong by society's standards. He simply did not care, because he valued money more than human life, even the lives of his own children. I believe Mr. Blackwood represents a particularly dangerous type of individual, the rational evildoer. He commits terrible acts not from madness or passion, but from cold calculation. He is a man who has concluded that his own desires justify any action, no matter how monstrous. He is sane, he is evil, and he is extraordinarily dangerous. My recommendation is that Mr. Blackwood be executed for his crimes. He represents an ongoing threat to society, and there is no possibility of reform or rehabilitation for someone who so fundamentally lacks basic human empathy. The trial was brief, the evidence was overwhelming, and Blackwood's own writings condemned him. From the Salem Register, January 20th, 1861, Jonathan Blackwood found guilty of 5 counts of murder. Sentenced to death by hanging. Jonathan Blackwood has been found guilty of murdering his wife, Catherine, and their 4 children, Henry, Elizabeth, Thomas, and baby Margaret, and has been sentenced to death by hanging. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all 5 counts of murder. During the trial, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence including the bodies found beneath Blackwood's parlor floor, Blackwood's own journal entries documenting his decision to murder his family, testimony from neighbors about sounds of digging, evidence of the inheritance and its conditions, psychiatric evaluation establishing Blackwood's sanity and moral deficiency. The defense attempted to argue temporary insanity, but Dr. Pierce's testimony established that Blackwood was completely rational and had planned the murders carefully over several weeks. In his closing argument, prosecutor William Harrison stated, "Jonathan Blackwood murdered his wife and 4 innocent children for money. He planned these murders carefully. He carried them out efficiently, and he felt no remorse. He valued $15,000 more than he valued the lives of his own children, including a baby of 8 months. This is not insanity. This is evil in its purest form. In announcing the sentence, Judge Robert Morrison stated, "You have committed the most heinous crimes imaginable. You murdered 4 children and your wife for financial gain. You showed no mercy to your victims, and you deserve no mercy from this court." Jonathan Blackwood showed no emotion as the sentence was announced. His final statement was, "I regret only that I was discovered. The inheritance would have made everything worthwhile." The courtroom erupted in outrage at this statement, with several spectators attempting to attack Blackwood before being restrained by bailiffs. Blackwood will be hanged at Salem Prison on March 15th, 1861. I found testimony from neighbors who had interacted with the family before the murders, creating a heartbreaking picture of the victims. From the testimony of Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, neighbor, "The Blackwoods lived next door to my family. We saw them regularly. Catherine was a lovely woman, kind, gentle, devoted to her children. She often spoke of how proud she was of Henry and Elizabeth, how they were learning their lessons well. She doted on little Thomas and baby Margaret. The children were delightful. Henry was a bright boy, always reading. Elizabeth was sweet and helpful, often assisting her mother with the younger children. Thomas was at that wonderful age where everything is new and exciting, and baby Margaret was just beginning to smile and make sounds. I saw the family together many times. Catherine clearly loved her children deeply. The children seemed happy, healthy, well cared for. Jonathan was different. He was always proper and polite, but there was a coldness about him. He never seemed to truly engage with his children. I often saw Catherine playing with them, reading to them, but I never saw Jonathan show them genuine affection. Catherine once mentioned to me, in confidence, that Jonathan seemed to view the children as burdens rather than blessings. She said he often complained about the expenses of raising a family. She worried about his attitude, but hoped he would soften as the children grew. The photograph they had taken in April 1860, I saw it displayed in their parlor. It showed the whole family formally posed. Looking at it now, knowing what I know, I can see the difference between Catherine's expression and Jonathan's. She looks at the camera with a mother's gentle concern. He looks stern, distant, as if he's somewhere else entirely. 6 months after that photograph was taken, he murdered them all. Catherine and those 4 children deserve so much better than the fate they received. They were killed by a man who cared more about money than about the family who loved him. The execution took place on March 15th, 1861. From the Salem Register, March 16th, 1861. Jonathan Blackwood hanged for murder of family. Jonathan Blackwood was executed by hanging yesterday morning at Salem Prison for the murders of his wife and 4 children. Blackwood, 35, maintained his composure to the end. His final words before the trapdoor opened were, "I calculated wrongly. The inheritance was not worth the gallows, but my family was not worth keeping either. I should have simply left them." Even in his final moments, Blackwood expressed no remorse for murdering his wife and 4 children. He viewed his execution not as just punishment for evil deeds, but as an unfortunate miscalculation. A crowd of several hundred witnessed the execution, many holding signs condemning Blackwood's actions. Several family members of Catherine Blackwood were present, seeking closure. The body will be buried in an unmarked grave in the prison cemetery. The Blackwood house on Prospect Street has been sold, with proceeds going to Catherine Blackwood's surviving family members. I found one more document, a letter written in 1900 by Catherine Blackwood's sister, who had helped raise awareness of the case. From a letter by Margaret Wells, sister of Catherine Blackwood, dated 1900. I am 72 years old now. My sister Catherine has been dead for 40 years, murdered along with her 4 beautiful children by the man who promised to love and protect them. Catherine was 32 years old when Jonathan killed her. Henry was 8. Elizabeth was 6. Thomas was 3. Margaret was only 8 months old, a baby who had barely begun to experience life. Jonathan murdered them all because an inheritance required him to be unmarried and childless. He valued $15,000 more than he valued 5 human lives. He felt no love for his family. They were merely obstacles to the wealth he desired. The photograph taken in April 1860, just 6 months before the murders, I have a copy of it. It shows the whole family in formal studio pose. Jonathan sits there holding little Thomas, looking stern and authoritative. Catherine sits holding baby Margaret, her expression showing a mother's care and concern. Henry and Elizabeth stand between their parents, looking serious as children did in formal photographs of that era. They look like a normal family. They look like any Victorian family having their portrait made. Nothing in the photograph suggests that within 6 months, 5 of those 6 people would be dead, murdered by the 6th. Looking at that photograph now, knowing what I know, it becomes unbearable. Those 4 children had no idea they had less than 6 months to live. Catherine had no idea she was sitting next to the man who would murder her and her children in their sleep. Jonathan's expression in that photograph, that stern, distant look, now reveals what he truly was. Not a devoted father and husband, but a man incapable of love, viewing his family as burdens, already calculating whether they were worth keeping. After the murders, after the trial and execution, I spent years trying to understand how someone could do what Jonathan did. How could a man murder 4 children, including a baby, for money? How could he feel no remorse? I never found a satisfactory answer. Some people lack the capacity for love and empathy that makes us human. Jonathan was one of those people. He could understand morality intellectually, but felt no moral obligations himself. He was capable of anything if it served his interests. Catherine and the children deserved better. They deserved to live, to grow, to have futures. Instead, they were killed by a monster who wore the disguise of a respectable bank clerk and family man. I write this to honor their memory and to ensure their story is never forgotten. Catherine Blackwood, Henry Blackwood, Elizabeth Blackwood, Thomas Blackwood, and baby Margaret Blackwood were murdered by a man who valued money more than human life. May their memories be honored, and may Jonathan Blackwood be remembered by history as an example of evil in its coldest, most calculated form. Margaret Wells, 1900. I spent months researching the case further, examining records of similar familicides, studying psychological profiles of family annihilators, and documenting the long-term impact on Catherine Blackwood's surviving family members. What emerged was a clear picture of a man who lacked basic human empathy, who viewed his family as obstacles rather than as people deserving of love and protection, and who was capable of murdering them all for financial gain without feeling genuine remorse. I wrote a comprehensive account of the case, examining not just what happened, but what it revealed about the capacity for evil that can exist behind respectable facades. The book was titled Murder for Inheritance: The Blackwood Family Tragedy of 1860. The photograph from April 1860 appeared on the cover. Looking at it now, knowing the full story, it became one of the most disturbing images I'd ever encountered. 6 people posed formally in a Salem photography studio, the father holding his youngest son, looking stern and authoritative. The mother holding the baby, her expression showing maternal care. 2 older children standing between their parents, serious and proper. They looked like any Victorian family having their portrait made, formal, respectable, dignified. But this photograph was taken in April 1860. By November of that year, 5 of the 6 people in this photograph would be dead, murdered by the 6th. Jonathan Blackwood sits there holding 3-year-old Thomas, the boy who would be one of his victims 6 months later. Catherine sits holding 8-month-old Margaret, the baby Jonathan would kill in her crib. Henry and Elizabeth stand between their parents, unaware they had less than 6 months to live. This photograph documented a family portrait taken just months before a father would murder his wife and all 4 children for an inheritance, then bury them beneath the parlor floor and live in the house with their bodies for 2 weeks before reporting them missing. I received many letters in response to the book, some from psychologists and criminologists studying family annihilation cases, others from historians of Victorian crime. But one letter moved me most deeply. It was from the great-great-granddaughter of Margaret Wells, Catherine Blackwood's sister. Dear Dr. Morrison, thank you for researching and telling my family's tragic story with such care and respect. Catherine Blackwood was my great-great-great-aunt. She was murdered along with her 4 children by her husband, who valued money more than their lives. The photograph you feature in your book, showing the whole family in April 1860, is particularly heartbreaking. My family has preserved a copy of this photograph for generations. When I look at it, I see a mother and 4 children who had no idea they were sitting next to their murderer. Catherine looks gentle and caring in that photograph. The children look healthy and well cared for. They look like a normal, happy family. But Jonathan's expression, that stern, distant look, now reveals the truth. He felt no love for these people. He was already calculating whether they were worth keeping, or whether the inheritance was more valuable. 6 months after this photograph was taken, he murdered them all. He struck each child multiple times with an iron poker while they slept. He killed baby Margaret in her crib. He murdered Catherine when she tried to defend herself. Then he buried them beneath the parlor floor and went about his normal life for 2 weeks. All for $15,000. All because an inheritance required him to be childless. Thank you for ensuring that Catherine, Henry, Elizabeth, Thomas, and baby Margaret are remembered. Thank you for exposing Jonathan Blackwood as the monster he was, a man who wore a respectable mask, but who lacked any capacity for love or human feeling. Sincerely, Sarah Wells Anderson. The photograph now hangs in my study, a powerful reminder of how evil can hide behind respectable appearances, how family bonds that should be sacred can mean nothing to those incapable of love, and how the pursuit of wealth can corrupt completely those who lack moral grounding. I look at that photograph often. 6 people in 1860, a father, mother, and 4 children. They look like any Victorian family, formal and proper in their studio portrait. But within 6 months of this photograph being taken, the father would murder the mother and all 4 children for an inheritance, burying them beneath the house and living above their bodies for weeks. The photograph was taken in April 1860. On the night of October 28, 29, Jonathan Blackwood systematically murdered his sleeping family. First, the 2 eldest children, then the toddler and baby, finally his wife, when she woke and tried to defend herself. He buried them beneath the parlor floor, reported them missing 2 weeks later, and was caught when police discovered the bodies. He was hanged in March 1861, expressing no remorse to the end. May Catherine Blackwood, Henry Blackwood, Elizabeth Blackwood, Thomas Blackwood, and baby Margaret Blackwood rest in peace. May they be remembered as victims of a man who valued money more than human life. And may Jonathan Blackwood be remembered by history as an example of evil in its most calculated, cold-blooded form. A man who murdered his entire family for inheritance money, feeling no love for them in life and no remorse for killing them. The photograph looked normal, until locals learned what the father buried beneath the house, his wife and 4 children, murdered for an inheritance that required him to be childless. A family portrait, taken just months before a father, would kill everyone in it except himself, all for money. That's the terrible truth preserved in this photograph from April 1860. The photograph looked normal, until locals learned what the father buried beneath the house,